Just testing out things.
Hello and welcome to the 40th episode of IAMKayPee podcast.
Oh my goodness gracious.
And I am joined infrequently by my awesome co-host, Laurel.
Who am I? I'm not really a co-host, am I? I'm just a frequent flyer.
With the most. You see what I did there?
I did see what you did there. It was good. I'm like a semi-demi co-host.
Okay, and as ever, we're having a couple of drinks.
A cup of drink.
A cup of drink.
A cup of drink.
One cup of drink,
One
please.
cup of drink.
Ching.
Cheers. Happy clink.
And we both have headphones on this time, so hopefully things in terms of the audio, the levels as well. And
I'm discovering, yes, all my little sounds.
Laura doesn't like hearing her own voice. So.
No, Laura doesn't.
Well, how do you think I feel? Not in terms of your voice. I mean,
no, you definitely meant in terms of my voice.
Having to, edit my podcast.
Oh yeah, no, that would be. Yeah, a few people have asked me if I listened back to them, and I think one of ours I've listened back to, but on the whole, it's just too much of me.
It is sort of weird to sort of listen to yourself. And if there's something interesting that someone said, then obviously I'll listen back. But I try to not listen to my voice as much as possible.
Yeah. And I think like with anything you're creating, you have to be able to distance yourself from it a little bit. Like it's the same with kind of anything you do that has some of yourself in it. You're going to have to, in terms of sort of quality control and like learning and progressing, you're going to have to take it in. But I'm just on it. I'm not in charge of it.
It's good to listen sometimes and see what vocal tics you have, to sort of iron them out so you're not doing them all the time, because obviously you say like a lot
and I say yeah
and I what would I say? I say quite a fair few times.
So I've never really noticed, like I noticed when you have a few kind of idiosyncrasies that like, and I know what stuff but when you say mines instead of mine, I always notice that.
Well, I'm always talking about mines though, like
of course you have mines, miners,
actual mines. Like in Africa, lots of mines.
Lots of the mines, yes. Sometimes he talks about mimes as well. It gets confusing. Mm-hmm.
That is one that I have picked up on, is the mines one. And that's one I try to stop saying.
But it's funny because at a certain point, something's just an idiosyncrasy. I like it because it's you, basically. So.
Oh, it's cool when we're conversating just normally, you and I. But when it's on a podcast, that's something that drives people up the wall.
I guess it could, yeah. Or they think it was very charming and Scottish or something. I don't know.
I don't think there's anything charming about me.
I'm sure thousands would
Scottish,
differ.
Obviously. At least try that. Sorry, I'm just on the mixing desk.
Tinkering?
Yes, tinkering.
Well, we're talking about people misspeaking or whatever, but I was listening to the podcast with you and Fen and about the grammar thing about me's and I's and stuff. Yes. I wasn't saying that it's always okay to say me. I was saying in any sentence, if you were on your own, you would say me, then it's okay to say me. Oh. So it's like...
So when would you... for people that haven't listened to the latest episode of the podcast, basically, me and Fen, or Fen and I, were discussing...
Fen and I, in that case. Yeah, I think so.
When to use I in a sentence.
Yeah, because... I think people like overcorrect to saying I because for some reason it sounds more educated, but it's not actually always like correct or necessary. I haven't like looked this up, so it's just what I'm remembering.
You should bloody look it up. You're the one that's telling everyone.
But I think what it is and how I was taught it is that if it was a sentence where if you were on your own, you would say me. It's fine to say me. You don't have to say I. So it was like
I.
She talked to me.
Okay.
You wouldn't say she talked to I. So if it was she talked to Darren and me, you can say that. That's fine. You don't have to say Darren and I. Whereas if it was like Darren and I went to the shop, you wouldn't say me went to the shop. So it's Darren and I went to the shop.
I would much rather say me went to the shop.
This obviously doesn't apply to any pirates out there.
Or Neanderthals. Me went to the shop.
Neanderthals can say whatever they want because no one can argue with them because they'll beat them up. Yeah.
Well, we don't know that they can fight.
That's true, but they look intimidating.
There was a movie I watched. I'm trying to think. Oh,
there was a movie me watched.
That I and me watched. California Man. Do you know that one with Brendan Fraser? I think it was called Encino Man.
That rings a bell, actually.
In the UK and in Europe, it was called California Man. I don't know why in America they called it Encino Man.
They assumed Americans would know where Encino was, and they didn't assume that foreigners would, probably.
And it was Pauly Shore and the dude from is it not Bilbo? The other one, Samwise.
Oh yeah.
It was Samwise when they were really young, and they find a caveman. And
I've heard of this.
They thaw him out because they're trying to build their backyard pool for a sick party for their end of high school, you know.
Many endeavors have thus been
and they have to invite a caveman, eventually played by Brendan Fraser, who comes to the party, but he can't fight. Like they just, everyone assumes because he's a caveman that he can punch, but he doesn't know what to do when he's getting attacked.
That's actually lovely.
So they show him loads of videos of like Bruce Lee and wrestling videos for him to like figure out what to do.
That's funny. That's quite sweet.
That is sort of a good point, though. Would they know how to fight like we do, with their fists and to sort of strike? Or would it be natural? Is that a natural thing to do that?
Like, I guess if you're in situations where you have to fight somebody hand to hand, but I don't know, like, socially.
Because in the sort of primate world, I think it's rare for someone else for a chimp or something of that sort to use a weapon. I think generally they use their fists.
Yeah, but they sure do fight.
Yeah,
so,
of course.
Yeah.
But would they know how to cause harm like that is an advantage? Because if one chimp figured out how to use a stick, that would be the king of the chimps.
Yeah, and that's what that's just how like civilization works, basically.
Well, is that not part of Space Odyssey when the chimps around the megalith?
There's
the monolith,
and
he figures out how to use the stick and he starts smashing the bones with it. And I think that's a sort of, obviously there's an evolution happening.
Yeah, they talk about that as one of the sort of turning points in terms of like figuring out tools, and there's certainly like evidence of primates using tools as well, but not necessarily as like weapons. It's sad if we consider that being the most advanced use of tools is using them to hurt people.
They need to do? They need to take these namby-pamby chimps in the zoo and then just show them how to use a bloody stick and set them free in the jungle. Imagine the civilization, the chimp civilization.
I feel like I'm now gonna see like a recording of this, and then the rest of the film is gonna be another Planet of the Apes films. It's like, this is how it started. Actually, we were wrong before about James Franco and his baby chimp. It's actually all Darren's idea.
But that would be, you would give them the best advantage possible, and when they get released into the wild, because that is always the sort of. The worry is when you release an animal that's been in captivity all its life, is it's not going to be able to survive.
Yeah, because it won't be like accepted socially, and it won't have the skills.
I suppose that is the part of it, that it would probably be on its own the whole time. But but
if it can mess other chimps up, maybe that's sort of, to me, that's like, oh, we have like a mouse overpopulation, so we're going to introduce 1,000 grizzly bears. Mm-hmm. And that's how we'll sort it out. It's sort of like...
Is that not what happened in Australia?
They did. They had a bunch of rounds of... Not quite that one, but a bunch of rounds of introducing...
They just shipped bears over to Australia.
Yeah, like we're gonna like bears in armor with like machine guns.
Are those conquistador bears?
Yeah. I was thinking more like Full Metal bears. Yeah.
Full Metal bears?
Yeah.
Do they have the right to bear
it's like
arms?
Clearly. Mad Max bears. They just go over and take care of all their rabbits and stuff.
But that is funny, where we always introduce animals to countries and they just sort of overrun because there's no natural predators, or they just don't have a food source that there's an abundance of, I guess. And then we have to introduce other animals to then take care of that.
And instead of correcting the balance, obviously, it gets increasingly... It's like in horror films when people split up and then someone goes missing. So you send one person after them, and then you send one more person after them, and then you send one more person after them.
Definitely. The whole splitting up thing in horror movies is a terrible
I love how consistently that happens.
Who would even do that in real life? It's not even a reflection of real life at all. I mean, are they living in a universe where nothing like this has ever happened?
It could be like an life imitates art thing, though, where because people have seen that in horror films, they would, and it wouldn't even necessarily be conscious. It would just be like, this is what happens now.
Right.
It's like, I'm always suspicious that, you see films like The Bourne Identity, and you have people working in intelligence agencies, and they always all talk the same way, and they always say things like, make a hole, people, and stuff like that. And
it's Jason Bourne.
I like to think that because people who are now in intelligence agencies have probably seen all those films, they all talk that way, and it's not because it's like necessarily part of the job. It's just because that's what you do.
That you must wonder where that's happened before,
where it actually comes from,
because we would never really know, I guess, if there's something that's happened in pop culture, however long pop culture has been around for, then does, like, when you see old-timey movies and they all speak like this, see, we're gonna get a crack on the jaw, see, like, we all just assume that that's how people at that time spoke,
right?
But I don't think that is a true representation of how people spoke at that time.
I think it's partly to do with how they recorded sound as well at that point. Like, people's voices sound different. Because they were recorded differently, basically.
But come on, though, James Cagney, like, he's a dirty rat. See?
Yeah, but when you have that like 1940s radio announcer voice, like, I think a lot of that.
But no one spoke like that.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe they all did, and it was incredibly annoying.
What would be the equivalent of that today? Would you say Fox News?
I guess I don't think we have enough of like a monoculture now to really have an equivalent. I'd like to think of maybe like equivalent, which is going to make this a really good segue. I'd like to think of sort of like mumblecore films as being like, people in the future be like, in the 2000s, they just talk like this.
Yeah, what would
they all talk like Tom Hardy, and we thought maybe have murdered in our mouth.
I was merely bored in the darkness. You adopted it.
Yeah. They apparently all spoke well, trying not to move their mouths at all.
Every Tom Hardy movie I've watched, I've had to turn up the sound.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what movie it has been, he just mumbles so badly.
My favorite is, I think, because there's like a reason for it when he's Bane, but in not Grizzly Man, wrong Killer Bear film, The Revenant, and just the whole thing, I'm like, I think this is really good, but I haven't got a clue what he's saying. He's just like,
basically The Revenant's based on Grizzly Man.
Sort of.
No, it is.
Well, I mean, it's the same Baron, an idiot
they
scenario. They
slightly changed it for Hollywood, obviously, but it's essentially
added
based on
some story.
They went back in time.
Yeah, they did go back in time.
They were trapping, whereas the other guy was
snuggling,
trying to pet
mainly
bears.
snuggling. Yeah.
But he always he talks like that.
Yeah, he does, which is funny because I also think he's like one of the best actors of the generation or whatever.
I guess if you're so incoherent when you are acting, then people just assume or fill in the blanks with what they think is what you're saying, or you make your own
it's
movie
sort of, he's like a
reception
theory man, where he's just like an everyman because you never know what he's saying, so you just fill it in. Or it's sort of like maybe it's the equivalent of when you don't understand art, so you assume it's too deep for you, but sometimes it's just because it doesn't make sense. And maybe
do you see he's playing Dick Cheney in his life, or is it his life story or something to do? I
think I heard that. That's quite horrifying.
I know.
That's gonna.
But there's pictures of him online where he's obviously beefed up a little bit and he's shaved his head. He's
quite good at sort of physical transformations and stuff.
I think that's been his bag all along.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to, and he doesn't get all sort of weird about it. Like, he doesn't go on this like huge poor me thing. And like, I know it must be really difficult, but so many actors, it seems to be their bread and butter, that these huge physical transformations are things they go on and on and on and on about when they have to do them.
Yeah, he just kind of does it.
He just does it, yeah.
To help the part as well.
Yeah.
And he also does an accent all the way out throughout the filming and throughout the interviews. He always stays away from his natural. I think he's Welsh. I think he stays away from his accent. So when he did Batman, he retained a slightly American accent in the interviews after. Yeah,
which I find like that almost makes more sense to me, because it's not like a sort of total methody super annoying thing. It doesn't like really impact the people around you. It's not a behavior thing. It's just like, it would be really hard to pick that stuff up and put it down again.
And if it's someone who's, say, Australian playing some superhero, and you hear them later on. Well, obviously Thor, the actor, is Australian.
I always forget that.
But when you hear them speak, it kind of takes you out of it a little bit. So I guess it just adds a bit more specialness to the part if he does that, you know, by keeping a certain level of accent in relation to the character he's just playing. Yeah,
there might be something to that as well. It's sort of more, it helps sort of audiences invest in it or something. Yeah, I never thought of it that way. Interesting.
Because when you hear Thor, like, Thor's not fucking Australian.
I don't think I've really ever heard him. It's so funny because it makes so much sense. Like, when you see him, you're like, yeah, of course. But I've never really heard him speak.
When I first saw him, I thought him and his brother were maybe Californian because they look very...
Yeah. Although it's weird to me that his brother is his brother. I always forget they're related.
His brother looks like a sort of... like a cerebral palsy version of himself.
Oh, it does look like they used all their ectoplasm making Chris, and they didn't have a lot left over for what's his name?
Ectoplasm.
I don't know.
I can only imagine how that came about.
But they just like put it all into to Chris.
What is, isn't it? There's Chris Hemsworth. Yeah, Liam.
Yeah. They just like ran out of stuff for Liam.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's a lovely person, but
just Liam Elaine. Yeah, I never really hear him speak. Has he been in anything apart from the Hunger Games?
That's the only thing I've seen him in. I think he was in something. He was in a sort of romance one after that, I think, but I have not followed his career avidly.
Wait a minute, Hunger Games wasn't a romance movie?
Well, a more exclusively romance-based movie. I thought it was just a movie about her being terrible to assorted menfolk.
I know, it was crazy. When I watched this, I was like, how is she such a strong character for women or young girls?
Yeah, it's different because I did read some of the books as well, and it makes more sense in the books, I think, but in the film, it's just like...
Is that something they sort of embellish on in the book? Is it something that is actually a thing? Because it just comes across like that in the movie, or is it like you're saying, it's an actual... She's
supposed to be hard and unlikable, like that's her thing at the beginning of the book, at least, because she's had a hard life. And
Jennifer Lawrence did a good job of that.
But it's weird because I think in the movies it's like all the characters around her end up liking her too easily. You don't have like the time span in the book where they get to build up her like kind of winning people over just by being herself or whatever. Not that it's like
didn't feel like that in the movie,
an impeccable work of literature or whatever, but no, in the movie it's just all sort of smashed together and you're like, why is everyone helping this girl? Like, she's such a dick.
Why are they cheering her on?
Which is funny because Jennifer Lawrence is really likable, I think. So casting her to play somebody unlikable is weird.
I know. Like, how does that not translate?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one.
Do you think it was maybe editing, or do you think it's just she's not very good at trying not to be likable?
I don't, because I've said like I always come back to Winter's Bone, and that was the first film I saw her in, and she's really good in that. Like, it's a really early film in her career, and it's awesome. It's a really good film, and she plays like a difficult character. Like, she's not unlikable. But I don't. It's sort of like a bloated production, the whole Hunger Games thing. I think there's too much everything, but it kind of lacks clarity. I mean, they're like interesting enough films, I think, for that kind of thing, and they're like aesthetically quite cool. Yeah. But I mean, I haven't seen all of them now. I think I gave up. I can't remember.
I think I watched half of one, maybe, and that was
because I have it on my laptop in like 2 parts. I refuse
to watch it.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
And I'm really super impatient when it comes to series like that I'm not totally invested in. So I will just skip ahead and watch like the 8th one, like without watching the rest.
Yeah, you do. And then you're like, it's bad when you don't know anything that happens. So what were you telling me about Harry Potter? And you did like one of them first, and you were like, what are muggles?
I did not do Harry Potter first.
No, but you like watched or read them in a weird order, and so you were like angry and confused about what a lot of the words were.
What the fuck is a muggle?
I love the idea of you saying that, but in the story you were like 13 or whatever, and I just love the idea
of that. The hell's a
muggle?
The story goes, I had got given, as you do when it's Christmas, from your parents when you're young. Usually you get given presents. This is the general theme of things.
If you're a Christmasist.
I'm a neo-Christmasist.
Neo-Christmasist. Do you believe Keanu Reeves comes and brings you presents at Christmas?
Mr. Anderson. Mr. Kilnoch.
That's Agent Smith. That would be truly frightening.
I just to sort of anyway, like I'll bring it back to The Matrix.
Cool.
In a second, but I got given the first 3 books of Harry Potter, and I think it's all the way up to The Prisoner of Azkaban is the third one.
Best one.
And I personally love it as well. But I'd never heard of the series before. I didn't even know there was 2 other ones out at this point.
Right.
And it's wizards and whatever witches. How crazy is it going to be? So I just started on the 3rd one. You
always tell me that I'm a contrarian, but you're such a contrarian as well.
I just thought it was like, I was a super hipster at that time. I just thought it was going to be like Black Mirror episodic, you know, just different from the rest of this. You know, like you can pick up,
most series are.
Just pick up the book and it doesn't matter like where you've turned to. It just makes sense. Funny. And eventually when I got to, people kept saying Muggle, and I was like, I'm really gonna have to go back to the first one. I was gonna refuse to do it as well. I was like, I just want to keep reading this.
It's this book's fault that it doesn't make sense. It's not my fault.
So bringing it back to The Matrix, I watched on YouTube someone breaking down the first Matrix in relation to the directors and how it was sort of representative of what they were going through, you know, because both of the directors are now trans women. Is that trans men? Trans women? Trans men?
They're women now.
Trans women.
Trans women. Yeah.
Okay. And essentially what we see in The Matrix is a lot to do with what we see today, and people, how they're sort of, trans people are feeling threatened by certain things that people say and don't acknowledge when it comes to them. And one of the things that they pointed out was Mr. Smith constantly calls him Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, it's his old name.
Which is not by the name that he is.
That actually makes a lot of sense, because I know that's a thing.
And that relates to obviously trans people who, you know, they maybe take on the name that they're comfortable with, and then people refuse to call them him or her or by their name,
or just forget, or it would all be really frustrating no matter where it was coming from.
And that can be sort of, you know, a terrible thing for you if you're going through some, you know, a lot of stuff physically as well as emotionally.
Yeah, and names are very powerful as well, and there's a long history of sort of using people's names to control them, and that kind of thing. So even if it's not meant in bad faith, it's sort of really bad, sort of bad magic to call somebody by, especially if it's like a name that's kind of dead to them in a way.
And that's why that was sort of something that was represented in The Matrix.
Yeah, and it's funny because even like the first time I saw it, I didn't see it when it came out, but I saw it a few years after probably, and even at that point it was, to me, pretty clear he was using his name as sort of a control thing. Yeah,
and I don't know specifically if that's why they put that in there. I don't know what they were going through in terms of how they were feeling and thinking, because they hadn't.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. That was a long time before.
Yeah. But still, it kind of applies to everything. Like you're saying, it's a control thing, and that does, you can apply it to what they are like and what people are going through at this point as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about, and it's good to maybe hear that as like, maybe if you have trans people in your life and you don't necessarily get what the big deal is about using the names they want you to use, it's sort of a good reminder about what a kind of more powerful act than that seems it can be.
I think there's sort of 2 parts to it. Like every sort of interaction, obviously there's going to be 2 people or more that are coming together. And it's not a case of one person should do this just because it's polite. It should be both people sort of accepting where both people in the party, you know, are coming from, and then you as a human being can be like, well, this person wants me to call this. I don't care. I'll just, whatever they want me to call them, I'll call them. But at the same time, those people shouldn't be outright sort of just trying to dictate how people use language as well.
Yeah, I think it is. It should be mutually respectful, hopefully.
I mean, in the immediate circumstances, not in a sort of larger, like, obviously, you know, people should be called what they want as well, you know.
Yeah, for sure. And people, as long as somebody's rights don't infringe on somebody else's rights, they should have their rights, for sure. It's just when it becomes, like when we talk about say freedom of religion, we get into like Sharia law and stuff like that, it's when it's sort of your rights or what you think are your rights then overlap against someone else's like human rights, that's then a problem.
Yeah,
but,
of course.
Yeah. Interesting. I had a thought.
That is unusual for you to have. So it's been a crazy couple of weeks actually in the world.
It has, yeah. There's a lot of stuff happening now.
I think maybe it's more obvious in the UK, but maybe sort of North America feels more sheltered from it. I think because they're sort of an island of sorts. They just think that they're sort of invincible over there, I guess, with Donald Trump.
I don't know what it's definitely a big topic there, but
you and I are definitely feeling it over here in terms of what's going on and Theresa May and Donald Trump's interactions in Syria as well. It's just been a clusterfuck.
That's the only word I can think of for it. It's such a weird situation to have come to, and I still don't understand why what's happening is happening now. In terms of things having escalated so much in Syria, and in terms of the US, the UK, and France's wanting to get their hands really dirty in Syria. And then
it'd be disappointing if it wasn't so terrifying, what's happening.
Yeah. Well, it's super, I think what I find really, aside from any sort of fears about the future, and we can get to that after, but what I find so upsetting is Theresa May's government has been so against helping refugees that they've essentially helped create from Syria. Like, it's been such a difficulty.
That's one of the major pockets of people and population that have been trying to come here due to being displaced by, where what's happening in Syria. And we're just outright sort of sanctioning and refusing to help these people. And then we go, well, I say we, but it's not me. Like, it's the governments. There's no we.
And it's not even the whole government at the moment. It's,
there is no we when we are bombing one country. It's one government bombing another country. That's what it is.
And it's one government bombing another government, and it's not even really the government of that country.
It's not the government. It's the people of that nation that's feeling the brunt of it,
And it's the kind of proxy war thing as well, in terms of, Russia and Iran. Like, I don't think, the UK gives a crap about Syria or about al-Assad or anything. I think it's basically just a weird sandbox for them to duke things out with Russia in. But yeah, it's just been, and at the same time, also with May's government, all the, we don't have any money for this, that, or the other for the NHS, and
we're supposed to be in austerity, and then
and then suddenly there's money for, like,
there's literally there's no reason for us. Maybe a faint one, but it's not one that can be sort of an argument that can be won. But there's literally no reason for the UK, quote unquote, to be over there bombing these factories.
And if there was a reason for it, then Theresa May wouldn't have had to do it overnight on a Friday night and not put it to a vote at all, even to the rest of the government, let alone to who cares what the people think about anything. But
that's like a random country just deciding to bomb Scotland. That, like the shipping yard in Scotland.
It's so bizarre. And like, I get, obviously chemical weapons, serious issue.
Of course,
but they're not following protocol at all. And I don't understand.
What's kind of strange about it, obviously after sort of using chemical weapons for a number of years, I think in 2013, Syria signed up to, like, there's a world organization.
There's the OPCW.
And they signed up in 2013.
And they were meant to be, because there were chemical attacks in Syria in 2013, and there have been since. The result of one of those attacks was that the West was threatening to do what they are doing now, and they came to basically a deal with the Syrian government for them to destroy the chemical weapon stocks. And they were meant to not have any more at this point, I think, which is clearly not the case. But the attacks that have been happening haven't really been interrupted. No. Like, there were attacks at the end of 2017 and not necessarily nerve gas, like things like chlorine, which is easier to pretend you have for another reason. And is not quite as terrifying as like sarin or whatever.
And obviously, like you say, there's been a whole series of attacks on his own people, al-Assad's own people. for numerous years, and it's never sort of drawn the UK's attention to sort of do something about it. And now, all of a sudden, when Russia's involved and there's things going on, Theresa May could not wait to start bombing.
Yeah, and literally couldn't wait, because the OPCW is meant to go in and inspect the site of this chemical attack, and she didn't even wait for that to happen. They bombed them before.
To do official testing to find out where the chemical weapons
so
came
right
from.
now, it's just that the West has some experts that say it was X, and the Russia has some experts that say there's no evidence. And I don't know, somebody's lying, obviously. I don't know who or why.
And
but
what is very suspicious is Theresa May was so quick to blame Russia when these agents, former agents, Russian spies, had been gassed supposedly by Russian, chemicals, and she just outright blamed them straight away without, when they were doing testing.
Yeah.
And now she's doing something similar in Syria. It's like,
it's
before
really
they even
weird.
get to test what's going on. I mean, is she just generally just wanting a war or something? Because this is the way this is the way she's going about it.
It does seem like that, but I cannot imagine. Like, maybe somebody out there who knows what's going on more than us would have ideas, but I cannot imagine how on earth that would be in her best interest at all.
Yeah.
And I like how neither of us are even pretending to say we think that she thinks it's in the UK's best interest.
Well, she said that.
Yeah.
She said it's in the UK's best interest.
Which is, I don't understand that at all.
What interest? What interest has the UK got? What could they get out of doing this?
Because right now her goal seems to be making Russia mad enough to do something really bad, which I don't see how can be.
And kill civilians in a multi-faceted sort of... It's such a complicated situation in Syria as well.
Mm-hmm. It's hugely complicated because there are a bunch of different parties, both within Syria and from without Syria, now acting in Syria. It's hard to see, like... It's like this weird Rube Goldberg machine of like who's doing what to who, and like why are they doing this, that, then to these people, and it's really hard to kind of tease out what might be going on in the bigger picture as well, like what is up with the West. I also don't know what's up with France, because Macron is really into it.
Yeah, he's like gonna back up the US and the UK.
But I don't really, because he's going pretty hard on it, and I don't know why.
It's kind of
what that's
surprising
about.
Coming from him.
Yeah, it totally surprised me as well, because he's supposed to be like the chill boy band leader of France.
And Trump in a way as well, because he, leading up to the election, the actual the vote.
Yeah.
He was all about saying, the US is just going to mind its own business. We're going to get our money back in the US.
Yeah.
Build our walls and just pretty much be hermits. And
our foreign policy is there's no foreign.
And now he's just like calling people out on Twitter.
And that's the thing, is like, you can't, for him in some ways I'm not surprised. Like, I would have been surprised a while ago because it is so inconsistent with his foreign policy, but at the same time everything he does is surprising and crazy, because I at this point assume he's just lost it, if he ever had it. I don't know. Like,
he's a billionaire, he knows how to make money, and he's run several successful businesses, Laura.
And he's run several businesses that have gone bankrupt and been sued for fraud.
I mean, his dad gave him a tiny loan to fit in his tiny hands.
Like, I just expect him to do insane stuff at this point, but I don't know
So yeah, it's starting to get sort of quite frightening in a way as well, what's going on. And I think this is really, really important. And I don't think a lot of people realize how severe this could get, you know. I just think people are just waiting for something to happen to stop Theresa May from, you know, going ahead with this.
Yeah.
But I don't see that happening. You'd get a vote from Parliament to see if she could actually do this.
No.
She just went straight ahead with it. And I don't know what... We have to do something to reel her back from bombing Syria more, you know, and killing more civilians. Obviously, you're going to kill some bad guys. I mean, what is a bad guy? But you're going to kill civilians along the way.
Yeah, for sure.
And we know what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan in the early 2000s when we went in there and just left a pocket, you know, where this vacuum and ISIS and ISIL or whatever filled this vacuum, and we're still dealing with that now.
Yeah.
And that's 17 years later.
Yeah.
We're still dealing with it, and it seems like it's only getting worse at points. Why go into Syria and do something to the same effect?
It's just so hard to, because it's not even just a question of like, you know, getting Russia angry and Iran but like exacerbating because, you know, ISIS are already, you know, they've had a very good time in Syria as well. I mean, not so much now, but definitely there was a lot. Yeah, I just don't see what good can come of it at all. And I don't see, there is this curious feeling now, like everyone's kind of drawing a breath or something. Like I feel like everyone's kind of waiting to see what happens next. And is it going to, because what happened this time was quite bad and very strange, but there haven't really been consequences yet. Yeah. So I think people are kind of waiting for another shoe to drop. And I think...
But what is the next thing that's going to happen? It could be something worse. You know, she could go and send an airstrike on somewhere, then it lands next to a school, you know.
Yeah, and I haven't seen...
Or they could bomb a Russian encampment, and then we're having to deal with
that's the thing
Putin,
is,
you know.
If they accidentally or whatever end up killing any Russians or like ground troops, I don't know. I haven't seen any numbers about casualties from the ones from Saturday or Friday or... I haven't seen anything. I saw
something like 50. I think there was some civilians that died.
I would think, because even like people working, if they're working in places manufacturing chemical weapons, it's not all going to be like who's going to be working there, first of all. Second of all, I don't know how you safely... I don't feel like nuking things is tantamount to safely disposing of chemical weapons. I don't really know how that works. Like I feel like, again, that's the reason why the OPCW would be involved, is like safely disposing of things. Because it's one thing if it's all just stuff in its components or whatever, but if it's stuff that's been put together, and a lot of the nerve gases are really hard to kind of clean from environments and stuff like that. Like the so I don't really see, like, surely people are going to be killed by not just missiles but by the effects of them if they're bombing chemical weapons manufacturing. And also, if they know where these places are, like, why were they still there? Because this was all meant to have stopped. So I don't really understand that.
Whoever I speak to, and maybe I'm just, it's like a confirmation bias with the friends that I have. No one ever says that we should be bombing Syria. I've not spoke to one person yet that says we should be bombing these places and killing civilians. No,
I haven't heard anything. And I haven't really heard anything convincing from even people whose jobs are running on this, aka Theresa May. But the
only people that have been saying stuff is the politicians. And there's very few of them. Yeah,
well, it's basically Theresa and Boris. What a wonderful double act.
The fucking clowns of the UK.
I know. Yeah, did you see Jeremy Corbyn's letter as well to her? Which I thought that was...
Did you read the comments?
I started, and then I realized I was going to have some sort of rage stroke, so I stopped.
So he basically said he was writing a letter to Theresa to say that what she's doing is illegal because she never asked permission or had a vote from Parliament, I guess.
Yeah, it was sort of... It wasn't... Yeah, it was sort of casting into doubt the legality at the most and wisdom at the least of her decision, I guess, and also questioning the timing in terms of the OPCW not having been present yet. and something she apparently said to him that she'd been told in terms of having kind of the UN's mandate to do it, which then wasn't confirmed by the UN.
Yeah.
Which is great as well, because I mean, if another, like, you know, countries have gone to war in other countries because they haven't done things according to the UN rules.
Yeah.
So it's kind of getting into quasi war crime territory, really. And what's insane to me as well is Russia's looking really chill about all of this.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's bad if Russia's looking really good next to you. Russia is looking very reasonable.
If Putin looks like the good guy, then we're all fucked.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't like, in terms of, there's a lot of stuff on both sides that are mutually, they can't both be true. So either Russia's lying or the UK's lying. I don't know.
Some of the comments I've seen on that post by Jeremy Corbyn, there was a lot of people like calling out like this liberal sort of, you know, like left. Sorry for that, guys. I don't know what's going on.
Okay, some shenanigans happening in the street outside.
Obviously, this is my own home studio, so you can hear whatever is going on.
Here's some local colour.
And I apologise. If it continues, then tough.
Basically, yeah.
Because we have to live here anyway.
Yeah.
And yeah, like they were saying Jeremy Corbyn's just like left and liberal and all this nonsense. And I was like, why is it a leftist, I hate that word, leftist issue for not wanting people to be indiscriminately killed?
That is so weird to me. It's again, it's this, like, the left-right division has gotten so strong that people are just uncritically, they don't even have to be for something, they just have to be against him. And it turns out what they're against is like not illegally killing people extrajudicially and out of your country, because it can't even be a question of patriotism to me, because there's no clear way to me that the UK's national security is at risk and because of what's going on in Syria, other than by making things worse in Syria, they make it more likely for sort of like terror attacks and also for having to deal with the refugees they're creating. And
then why is it as a US citizen that, say you get convicted of a crime and you're sentenced to death, there's a whole process that takes years for you to eventually maybe, or however you're killed by a capital punishment. So why is that then?
Yeah, you have appeals, you have the right to defend yourself with a lawyer. How can you just
go and bomb people who are innocent? There are civilians over there that are going to get caught up in this just because they're from a different country.
I think I was reading...
Why is that?
I don't know.
Why is that right?
And it's just because we are othered in some way from what's going on over there that I guess people are accepting it. I just don't... It's one thing when you set up a thing where there's a reason for it, but in this case, I really just don't see the reason for it. Like, if anything, the reason the UK was there in the first place was supposed to be to protect the Syrian people from their own government, essentially. And obviously that's not what's happening.
That's like... that's like the UK going over to World War II, which they did in Germany and Berlin, and bombing Berlin, and then Jews being caught up in the bombings, and then just being, well, we got some Nazis, so that's
so it's cool. And then also if then Jewish refugees came to the UK being like, oh, I'm sorry, but we don't have any room for you. And actually we're going to separate from the European Union because we don't want to take more of you than we think we should.
That is the dodgy thing.
So I mean, stupid.
Is this planned? You know, is it planned to leave the EU so then they don't have to take in more refugees, so then they can go and wage war or bomb whoever they want?
Surely not. Like, it's too...
Don't call me Shirley. Probably.
I don't think any of the people we're seeing speaking to us as politicians are that smart. But like, please tell me that Boris Johnson has that ability to do delayed gratification, because I don't think so.
And the irony having, we've spoke about this before, but the irony of having someone who's completely incapable of doing his job, i.e. Boris Johnson, who's a complete racist
Muppet
as well.
He is. He's a horrible racist
as
Muppet.
A foreign secretary, foreign
minister, he's for foreign minister.
As someone that's his job, to interact with other nations on behalf, and as the person representing the UK, we have someone who's one of these good old boys from the bloody
I
Eton,
know.
who's
Oh,
like
God.
a blubbering, and he's blonde, and he looks like a fucking.
He looks like the bloated
idiot.
corpse of Andy Warhol.
And
I
then
think
he has to interact with these people.
Yeah.
And what representation and what idea do people have of the UK when that's who they're dealing with on
Oh
behalf
my
of
God.
it?
I just had a really strong vision for some reason of him like peeing in potted plants in foreign embassies. I don't know where that came from, but there we go.
I'm not gonna lie. If I had a chance, I'd probably do that as well.
Depends on the embassy. It'd have to be a really fancy one.
What was it? He called someone fuzzy wuzzies. Is that what it is?
Oh, yeah. I can't even. There's just a whole catalog. Like, I just can't. Oh my God.
And even like 10 years ago, people found it sort of slightly endearing, and they thought, well, he could be the mayor of London. Probably.
Remember when he was, and he used to ride around on a bike, and it was charming. I quite liked him back then when he was just a bit of kind of color. No, my God, he's turned into like a junior Duke of Edinburgh, and he just can't keep his foot out of his mouth.
I think he actually is the Duke of Edinburgh and Theresa May's love child, probably.
That makes sense. But it's like at least
immensely racist.
Yeah.
And
super. Yeah. And it's like even so, let's say you get these kind of like old Etonians and stuff, and at least you can imagine if he's going to state dinners, he knows.
Is that a planet somewhere? Or?
Yeah, it sure is. You can imagine he'd at least know like what fork to use and stuff like that. But I think he's just retained all the racism and sort of lack of consequences, and he's discarded anything he may have learned in terms of behaving his damn self. I don't know.
And this is really bad for the UK. This whatever's going on in terms of Syria and Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And the fast tracking of doing these things, as in sending bombs and bombing these factories without any sort of get-go or some go-ahead from a vote or something.
Yeah.
And that's showing the sort of just how there is really nothing that we can do as the UK in terms of to do with politics. Like, it's a very small faction and part of politics and the sort of the like Westminster and all that. It's a really small part of the population that gets to decide what's going on.
Yeah.
And no one can have an influence on that, it seems. Like, it's just this little sphere and bubble that gets to decide, right, we're bombing Syria.
Yeah. And in this case,
we're all sitting here in our flats, in our houses, in our, caravans, in our undersea fucking scuba diving hostel house. Don't know where I was going with that.
That's my favorite house.
We have no effect on that. Nothing. It just seems like it's bypassing everything as part of the country. The politicians have bypassed all of that and are doing something for some reason, and I don't get it.
And I think what especially highlights that is that Theresa May, it hasn't even been the politicians. It's basically been her. As far as I'm sure she's getting advice and stuff like that. But
who was in the meeting that said, yeah, we should strike now? Remember she had an emergency meeting?
Yeah,
before she went to bomb.
Yeah.
Who was in there and why?
I can't imagine. And it's just crazy. Like, I remember we woke up in the morning and I think you checked your phone first and you said what had happened. And I thought it was going to happen, but I didn't think it was going to happen that quickly.
She literally must have came out of the meeting.
Yeah.
Put her finger on the buzzer.
Yeah.
Well, I know it's not a giant button.
Probably sends like a text message or a Twitter DM or something, but
the government probably does make a massive red button up for Donald Trump so he can smash it.
And it
does
bet you.
Literally nothing, but he's just like, he thinks he's doing stuff. He probably thinks he's like nuclear bombed North Korea several dozen times at this point.
Probably, yeah. They set up a dummy button for him. That's funny. Oh gosh, it's scary stuff. And then it was, to me, especially disconcerting and weird and repulsive that she kind of alluded to the poisoning of the spy and his daughter in Salisbury and was like, that'll show you Russia. And it's like, you bombed Syria, like not even keeping up the pretense that it's not totally about Russia.
Imagine if it was Clinton and her in power just now, like Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
That would be a weird situation.
Oh gosh, I think it would
imagine. Oh, sorry.
I think it would be better because I think.
Do you not think Hillary would have went in as well and did this as well, trying to show?
I don't have any reason to say this really, but I don't think so. It's just so rash. And I think she'd be way more likely to be crippled by sort of indecision than making big, huge, weird decisions.
I think she would do the opposite of that, doing the big decisions and thinking that she's completely right and sort of like, this is me, I'm a strong woman, you know, I can do this.
I think just based on her sort of policy kind of micro flip-flops in the past, I think she's more concerned with her career than anything else. So initially, I don't think she'd do something. When you
go from trying to run for president, I think those things matter. I think once you're president, I don't think you really care in terms of like if you're popular or not. I think you're going to do whatever the big government says you're going to do.
I think she's still smarter.
But look, her husband was the president, and look what he did. Look at there's a lot of heinous things he did.
Oh yeah, but I don't think he's smart either. Like I think he was I think he was a relatively good president in terms of.
Come on, he was playing the saxophone and getting blowjobs under the table.
Which turns out makes a relatively good president because the rest of the government could get on with things because he was busy. So that's cool. I don't really know. I just don't think. I guess it's hard for me to say because I can't see what the end game is at this point.
Do you think she ever could have been president? I think with all the sort of people calling her a criminal, like she's legit, you know, done some heinous stuff.
Yeah. I don't know because I never would have said Trump could be president. So.
But he's not really had anything against him like that. He's not done anything as bad or.
Yeah, but he also had no career, and he's done some personally pretty iffy stuff. His record as a businessman, he's got some great achievements, but he's got some huge failures as well.
I think most businessmen are like that though. Like if you ask any businessman, they're probably more failures than they have succeeded.
I don't know. Just in terms of like all the different ventures and stuff, that to me is a product of a celebrity. It's not a product of a businessman. So,
but entrepreneurs, generally, he is an entrepreneur. And I think the general vibe with entrepreneurs is that you fail so many billion times and then that one time is what helps.
Whereas to me, his failures all came a little later. It was when he got too big for his sort of own good. And he did, like, it was falling on like The Apprentice fame and stuff like that. And he was like, I can sell steaks, I can sell a made up university and that stuff. And that's all still going through litigation as well.
The Trump University.
Yeah.
And Trump Airlines as well.
My God, I didn't even know about that. Oh God! But no, the steaks and the bottled water, and that was to me all stuff that happened later.
They had steaks and bottled water.
They did have steaks and bottled water, and they had steaks and bottled water.
It's like those steaks. Bottles with the little boat inside them. It's like how do you even get like a steak in there? How do you get it out?
That sounds like such a 1960s businessman idea.
Yeah, steak water. See,
you know what I like?
I like my steak,
and I like water.
No one likes
nobody likes water. No, it would be steak in like Manhattans or something.
Maybe it sort of filtered out your water so it was drinkable.
Maybe.
Steak water. Coming to you soon.
Steak water. It's like for all the hippies out there and their coconut water and stuff. We've got businessman water. We've got steak water.
We should take this to Donald Trump. He would probably love it because he eats steak. I'm not sure if he knows what water is, but he definitely eats steak.
Does he still eat steak? I feel like he just eats McDonald's now. I think he's too scared. Yeah. He's scared of food.
Yeah. Did you hear that? That he didn't like. He stopped eating like going to restaurants because he felt like he was going to be poisoned. Yeah. So he only eats McDonald's supposedly. Yeah.
Which is great because it's probably hastening him to the grave. So that's cool.
Nah,
he'll absorb all those preservatives and he'll stay whatever he is, a deranged 70-year-old forever.
That was one of the scary things. The pictures from the Iraq war, there was lots of stories and pictures of Iraqi bodies and American bodies decomposing side by side.
Oh.
And a lot of bodies, the American ones were taking longer to decompose.
That is weird.
Because of all the preservatives in the food they were eating.
Oh, I've never heard that.
And the Iraqis were just like decomposing naturally.
Oh my God, I've never heard that. That's super creepy.
So basically, McDonald's embalms you.
Yeah.
Did you see that lady that got embalmed while she was? Am I saying that right? Is that annoying? Embalmed.
It's a silent ish L. It's one of those weird ones. It's like a demi L.
Embalmed. You're a bum. Embalmed. Alive.
That seems like a bit of a contradiction in terms there. How?
She was in the hospital and Let's see this. I'll Google it just to
Oh
make
my
sure.
gosh. So was this an accident?
No. They were trying to like capital punishment her.
Well,
no,
my first thought was that
no,
she was like into
accident.
some weird thing.
It's a complete accident.
Oh my God. Because I've heard of this. I think it was on Joe Rogan maybe, and they can like, it's a startup to like copy your brain, but like they have to euthanize you. Basically, I was thinking of that. But
okay, a bit suspect.
mm-hmm.
This is from 7 days ago, and it's The Verge. Seagulls.
Or yeah, someone told a seagull joke.
Wow. So a Russian woman was embalmed alive. A funeral director explains what that means. The chemical they used was stronger than that which the funeral directors use.
So that sounds like a whole series of mistakes.
So she was accidentally embalmed. Oh my God. I mean, we laugh.
Oh my God, that's horrifying though.
During an operation? And what does that mean?
So it wasn't just like wrong toe tag. It was like.
So she was undergoing a surgery to remove ovarian cysts, but doctors accidentally gave her formalin, which is a fluid with a very high proportion of formaldehyde. Formaldehyde, formaldehyde, the chemical used to preserve dead bodies.
Yeah. You know, when you see in movies like eyeballs in jars and stuff, that's
supposedly that is. People were talking about it, saying it's one of the most painful things to happen to someone if they were alive.
Oh my God!
You can only imagine.
That's horrifying. How would that? Oh my God! I mean, Russia.
That's what they think of like women operations in Russia. Like, we'll just embalm her.
She's kind of a person.
Like you were always talking about how there was a sort of mystery around the women's anatomy.
Yeah, and they were like, don't really know where her womb is, so we'll just assume it moves around. Like stuff like
that's
that.
That's what they do in Russia to women.
Yeah, they're like,
any operation on a woman, just embalm her.
Yeah, that's cool. That'll give us some time to figure this shit out. Yeah.
Let's keep playing.
Well, speaking of Russia, again, this is definitely a bit of a Russian episode, but talking about the whole Salisbury, the poisoning thing, and I haven't seen anything more about it, but you had seen a report about an independent Swiss laboratory who'd done a chemical analysis.
So basically, Russia said that they got a sample,
which I don't even know how they would have gotten it
from a lab it was an independent tester in Switzerland.
Yeah, which is weird because Russia's been contending they haven't been provided with any samples, and that's part of the problem because I think they're actually meant to be. But yeah, it was, and the Swiss lab had come up with it being a completely different chemical agent.
I'm just Googling it here. Yeah. Sorry, folks.
I remember the details, but I don't know if it's been updated at all.
So, New York Post. This is where this is coming from. Yeah, I think a lot of everyone's quoting the same article.
Yeah, it's just been the one, so there's no new information.
Just take this with a pinch of salt. Russia, they say that a Swiss lab analysis shows nerve agent designed in the West. Which, I mean, what could that mean, you know? So they received a document from a Swiss lab that analysed the samples in the nerve agent poisoning of the ex-Russian spy and his daughter, which points at a Western-designed nerve agent as a likely cause. How can you know something's like designed in the West?
Well, because I think it was the specific chemical that they'd said it was, which I don't think actually is a nerve agent.
So it's something? The OPCW that did it.
It is?
Yeah.
Really?
It was done at the request of the OPCW.
Oh, holy shit. Well, if that's true, then that's interesting.
So, yeah, Minister Sergei Lavrov said Saturday that Moscow received the confidential information from the laboratory in Spice, Switzerland, that analysed samples from the site on the March 4th poisoning of Sergei and his daughter in the English city of Salisbury. Not really a city.
Yeah, English place.
The minister said that the analysis was done at the request of the Organisation for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons.
So PCW.
But did they
well,
ask for it?
That's weird, because then presumably the OPCW would say that and not Russia. I don't know, but the drug that
maybe they're wanting, like, maybe they're sort of, that was the results from the Swiss as opposed to the OPC coming out with a statement. It was Russia that read the results and then gave their statement. So
but
maybe
I would assume
they were just waiting to formulate the results to then give a statement.
So Russia just kind of jumped the gun. I would just assume that if the OPCW had requested the tests, that the lab would report to them, not to Russia.
I think maybe Russia, because they're trying to prove or maybe say, like, we didn't do this.
Yeah.
You're obviously going to say straight away, if you have any wind, that this is what the results were. And you'd be like, oh, it's not us. See, I showed you. Yeah.
And it is now for sure. And now it's funny because Russia was saying, like, just because this is a chemical weapon that was designed in Russia doesn't mean we used it. And now they're saying, like, oh, this was designed in the West. But I don't know if it said in that article, but the one you showed me, the chemical they're meant to have used is one that was one of those, and I said this to you the other day, but just for the podcast, it's one of those kind of MK Ultra type. It was called BZ or Buzz, they were calling it, but it's
and for people that don't know, MK Ultra was a thing they ran in America, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was where they were testing sort of different sort of chemicals on people,
like especially LSD a lot, like different sort of human brain chemistry stuff.
Am I right in saying they poisoned a small town in France with LSD in their water supply?
I've heard a bunch of things about them doing really iffy testing, but I don't know about that one because that would be quite out there. Okay. But this one is, it would be super weird if it was used in a poisoning because it's not fatal. It's just something that's meant to, they started piloting it to see if they could use it to incapacitate troops, like as opposed to killing them.
Okay.
And it would be pretty effective because it basically just really screws you up, and then everybody who hasn't been screwed up has to take care of you because you're still alive. You just... But so the results were super
resources.
Yeah, exactly. But also not actually killing anybody. But it basically, it's sort of like you can hallucinate. Like it has really different effects on different people. And that was why they stopped messing around with it, because they really couldn't predict when it would start or when it would stop or what it would actually do to you. So it'd be really weird if it was used in an assassination because it's not lethal and they wouldn't have any idea how long it would take for it to take effect.
And everyone that was sort of talking about if it had been the chemical attack that they said it was initially, then these people would be dead. Yeah, like it was... I don't know enough about the results of that generation of nerve gas, but I'm saying the one that they said initially that this
the Novichok,
the Russian one, most people say they would be dead, no doubt, and even Putin himself said if it was him that would have done it, these people would have been dead.
Which is a pretty baller thing to say. My understanding of nerve agent survivors is that you're super messed up for the rest of your life, and they haven't said anything about that. And what's sort of weird to me, and I don't want to get all conspiracy theory about this, but what's weird to me is, okay, so Yulia, the daughter, is better now. She's issued a statement. I don't think anyone's seen her. There's no real way of telling.
Well, she didn't issue a statement. It seems like people have done it on her behalf.
Yeah, like nobody's seen. And the thing that is weird to me is everything that they would do if this was a real situation in terms of protecting her is also exactly what they would do if this was hinky and some sort of false flag thing. A hinky, peculiar, dodgy, hinky, Hinky.
Where did
You'll
that
learn
come
something new every day. I feel like it's another 1940s one, maybe.
It's 1940s
hinky.
Laura language.
No, it's real.
Is it North American?
Look it up, probably.
Yeah, you hinky bastard.
But anyway, everything that they would do to protect her if she were actually sort of a witness and all that stuff is also exactly what they would do if this was totally fabricated.
Because we haven't seen her speaking and walking around.
Yeah, but also if they're doing their jobs and this is all on the level, we shouldn't. Yeah. So it's a weird one.
So just to bring it back to what I was saying about the MK Ultra, there is a theory that the French bread was spiked with LSD in CIA experiment in the 1950s. And it's the Pont Saint Esprit mass poisoning. And it was basically a village in France. but there is sort of speculation that it could have been ergot poisoning.
Yeah, because whenever you hear bread and then people hallucinating, it sounds like ergot poisoning.
But there was more than 250 people involved.
Yeah.
50 people interned in asylums and resulted in 4 deaths.
Yikes.
Foodborne illness was suspected, and among these it was originally believed to be a case of cursed bread.
Yeah.
But that seems like...
I don't know, ergot poisoning is super... It really messes you up. I feel like the CIA seemed to have no problem actually poisoning American citizens, so I don't see why they'd want to go to France and make it international. But I don't know. Yeah, I never heard of that one.
And yeah, obviously ergot poisoning, which is like you can get it from moldy bread, I guess.
Yeah, I think usually rye, but I'm not sure. And it's like they blamed it for like the Salem witch freak out and stuff, and it makes you like trip basically, but it also really messes you up. You get like
can't like seizures and all that, and you can't. It's like it affects your nervous system. Yeah,
and I think you can get like if you I think it's also called St. Anthony's fire, and if you check out St. Anthony, he's all ulcerous and freaky. I think that's the same thing.
I thought you could be able, you have the ability to eat fire.
Yum. But yeah, like you get random pains. Yeah, that must be the nerve thing actually then. Yeah. But
that's crazy.
That's
though,
a weird one.
250 people.
That's a load of people. Yeah.
I wonder why they suspected the CIA.
Yeah, I wonder if that's like a fringe thing or if it's
Well, this was in the Telegraph in 2010.
Okay.
Okay.
Telegraph is very much almost a newspaper.
Oh, okay. So this is from the Telegraph in 2010, filed under news, obviously.
Yes, news of things that happened quite some time ago.
It's old news.
Everything that's old is news again.
And it's by Henry Samuel in Paris.
Oh, Paris.
He said, a 50-year-old mystery over the cursed bread of Point Saint-Esprit, which left residents suffering hallucinations, has been solved after a writer discovered the US had spiked their bread with LSD.
For reals?
As part of an experiment. In 1951, at least 5 people were suddenly struck down with mass insanity. 250 people were struck down with mass insanity and hallucinations, and at least 5 people dead. That's crazy. So
that'd have to be a lot of LSD.
An American investigating journalist has uncovered evidence suggesting that the CIA peppered local food with the hallucinogenic drug LSD as part of a mind control experiment at the height of the Cold War. So,
I don't really believe that.
Oh God! One man tried to drown himself, screaming that his belly was being eaten by snakes.
Oh my God, that's creepy.
An 11-year-old tried to strangle his grandmother with another man shouted, "I'm a plane."
I like how they just pepper that one in there like that's tantamount to...
You have to start with that one. I'm a plane.
Guys, do the funny ones first and then give us the really sad and creepy ones.
Okay, before jumping out of a second story.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what they did then. Yeah.
I think they should preface it with the jumping out the window.
Yeah, he jumped out of the window, shouting, "I'm a plane." Yeah,
that's the best way.
Because otherwise they trick me into laughing at it, but it's not funny.
Oh God, he broke his legs and then he got up and carried on for 50 yards.
Nope.
Another saw his heart escaping through his feet and begged the doctor to put it back. Not the man that jumped out the window, but another person. Many were taken to the local asylum.
Oh boy. Soft rooms for everyone.
So, however, H.B. Albarelli Jr., obviously, an investigative journalist, claims the outbreak resulted from a covert experiment directed by the CIA and the U.S. Army's top secret Special Operations Division at Fort Derrick.
Where's Fort Derrick?
Fort Dick, Maryland.
Okay.
Detrick, sorry.
Derrick. Okay. Fort whatever.
Fort, insert any male name here.
Fort not in France mainly, but...
Derrick.
Fort Derrick.
In
Bien sûr.
The Maryland.
Ah, le Maryland. Mais oui.
We're all merry in the land.
Oh, yes, we are if we get tons of LSD on our cornflakes.
But can you imagine that?
Like what? That's really creepy though. Like, and they did do stuff like that. I just don't know if they did it in France, but they did it to American soldiers. I mean, it was the same with testing nerve agents. We talked about it last time. I've been in a real wormhole reading about the history of like chemical and biological weapons. So.
Well, for this one, there is a Wikipedia entry. What is it? I don't know if it was part of MK Ultra. I think MK Ultra came later. I think, was it?
When was this?
1951.
Yeah, I don't know when it like officially started or whatever, but I associate it with the 60s. Yeah,
because it was like Project Blue Book and all that as well came from that era.
They did some weird shit.
Other theories. Oh, so in 2008, historian Stephen Kaplan published a book on the incident, and he asserts that the incident was connected neither to LSD research nor to ergot poisoning.
Oh.
Kaplan's book argued that poison might have come from nitrogen trichloride used to artificially bleach flour.
Oh. You'd think if that was a thing that would happen more, but I don't know.
So the LSD one is under the conspiracy theory on the Wikipedia page.
Right. So it's officially a conspiracy theory.
Everything's a bloody conspiracy theory. If you
honestly,
conspire to do it.
Yeah, then it's a conspiracy. The closest I've been to digging conspiracy theories is like the last couple days in terms of what's going on and why is it. Because it just is super clear. Again, with all the stuff that's like mutually not, both things can't be true. Yeah. So somebody's lying.
There's a lot of sort of bad press around conspiracy theories and people coming up with some. And
there's a lot of bad conspiracy theories.
If you believe a conspiracy theory and you bring it up to friends or at a party, people look down on you like there's something wrong with you.
And I think a lot of them are completely crazy, but...
Well, we know for a fact that there has been lots of conspiracy theories.
Yeah, it's not like a new idea either that there have been conspiracies. And it just doesn't mean that everything is a conspiracy.
And if you even take it in its actual basic form of what it means, even like 9/11, people conspired to bring down the towers. Yeah. That's what happened. You know, it's who done it is up to, is open to interpretation.
Yeah, but it was a conspiracy. Maybe we just need to refine our language and say like alternative conspiracy theories, like which is an alternative explanation for something that can be explained by being a conspiracy. You know what I mean?
But so with these things going on recently with Russia and Syria, it's hard not to believe that something's going on,
Yeah, like somebody is doing something really dodgy and I just don't know who it is.
Well, it's been done. Theresa May has attacked Syria.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a very dodgy result.
Without even a vote.
Yeah. And that's like, I get the need for a leader who has been theoretically democratically elected, which she hasn't, by the way, but to make swift decisions in times of like urgency in terms of national safety, but not about bombing another whole entire country. Like, that's not an appropriate use of that power at all.
Who are the people that worked in these factories?
Yeah.
You don't know what they're like. They might just they might be people that are just trying to support their family.
Yeah. Well, they're surely not all evil people. Like, it just, the whole thing boggles the mind. And the thing that really bothers me is I don't know why now, because again, this isn't the first time Syria has used chemical weapons against Syrians. Well, and it seems to have a lot more to do with Russia.
More specific, Al-Assad has used chemical weapons against his own people. The
Syrian regime. Yes. Yeah. Like often, like very frequently, like more than 20 times probably.
Wow, really?
A lot, like not all big attacks. And again, a lot of, less horrifying relatively weapons like chlorine,
can't even imagine,
which is still awful, but again, it's not as like obviously just once you get into nerve gas, it's just so horrifying.
It's such a barbaric way to sort of take someone's life as well.
It's off, and it is it's such a calculated,
same with airstrikes and fucking missiles from outer space coming down to just hit your fucking family and take them out of the game. Obviously, you're going to hit someone who's bad.
Yeah,
but
you're going to hit whatever. And that was it. You pointed out when she was talking about targeted missile. And it's like, yeah, targeted to hit pretty much Syria. Like, it's not like they're...
no, she said precision.
Precision, that was it, yeah.
How can you have... The most precise fucking instrument of war is a drone.
Yeah.
And the numbers on the civilians' casualties that come from drones,
it's massive.
It's horrendous.
Yeah, it's really bad.
So when you're using airstrikes like they're using, it's going to be more indiscriminate, you know?
Yeah. And again, especially if they're hitting places that manufacture chemical weapons and God knows what's escaping into the surrounding landscape. I don't know. Like maybe it's totally fine. I literally don't know, but I doubt it.
Probably
somehow.
not.
Yeah. Because I mean, that's a huge problem with disposing of chemical weapons. It's not like you can just put them in the bin.
Do you know what's strange is we don't hear, there's nothing on the TV or in the media. There's no Syrians saying, look, UK, come help us. There's nobody saying they've done this, that, and the next thing to us, so come and do this.
Yeah.
We don't even see images of I don't know what Al-Assad looks like.
Oh, I do. You see him, you'll recognize him when you see him, kind of thing.
But we don't, it's not like we're having a cry from the people. Obviously, it doesn't have to take that for obviously something to be going wrong in the country and for us to help them. But in the way we're doing it under these circumstances is completely terrible.
It is. And it's been going on for almost a decade. And why now? Like, and I know there's been a lot of intervention in the past, but I just don't. If it was a humanitarian issue, nobody's even really pretending very hard that it's a humanitarian issue on the upper levels. It's, I don't know what it is. It's very, very, very disconcerting.
Sorry, I'm just trying to look up what it looks like.
He's a weird one because there was a lot of hope he would be more of a reformer. Like he was quite young when he came into power and he's relatively secular. And I think the West was kind of hoping he'd be
that guy.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. He's like 50 now.
Wow.
Yeah.
He doesn't look like
someone He studied in the West. He studied in London. He went to medical school.
He's wearing suits.
Yeah.
And every single picture he looks French almost.
Yeah. And he's like probably he is relatively secular, but he started off very briefly okay, like 6 months of okay. He was like 34 when he came into power.
I have literally never seen him.
Really?
Never.
Oh, okay.
I don't think most people have either.
I don't know why I have, but he has one of those.
I think
there's something weird. I
think when most people imagine him, they think of some person that looks like
Gaddafi. Yeah. Oh, such a creep. Because we watched that.
For people who don't know what Al-Assad looks like, Google him right now. He looks completely different from what you would think he would.
Yeah, he looks like a sort of French businessman or something. Yeah.
Like how someone that looks like this, I suppose if Putin looks like he does and he's doing some terrible things as well, you know.
Putin always looks like the Buddha to me. He looks very sort of serene, but obviously appearances can be deceiving. Yeah.
He looks like a human form stretched out version of Yoda.
Yeah, or like one of those big white cats.
Yeah.
Like yeah.
Big white cat? You mean
like the sort of
tiger?
No, like the fluffy ones.
Right.
Like there's something sort of like lazy and sort of, I don't know, it's weird. And then Theresa May looks like, I said this to you the other day, but I'm sure this is the thing people will relate to. You always had one substitute teacher in school who you could tell was scared of all of you.
Yeah.
And like she tried to assert her power by being kind of mean, but you could tell she was scared of you. Like that's the vibe I get from her. With her kitten heels. And
our substitute teacher would always, in high school, he would always do this thing called the briefcase test.
Yeah.
And it was basically just to get the guys to sort of calm down.
Uh-huh.
They were all rowdy, and it was basically just a test of strength.
Yeah.
So we all had to like stand in front of the whole class.
Yeah.
And we were to who could hold the briefcase the longest. You know, it was like a sort of...
That's funny.
He was using our macho-ness against us.
Yeah, it's really funny.
And yeah, we were all like, yeah, briefcase test.
That's so funny.
He was nice. Can't remember his name, but he was a good guy.
I had some good ones. I had a few good... I didn't actually really have any terrible substitute teachers.
Yeah.
I had a couple who were the ones that were nervous and you're like, yeah, you're in trouble. But yeah.
Was it all female teachers did you have?
No. Because I went to
an all-female school.
Yeah.
That's why I was asking.
I went to a mixed elementary school and then I went to an all-girls school. But no, we had guy teachers, like a vast majority were female, but we had, God knows why they did this to this poor man, but they sent us a substitute, like a long-term substitute English teacher when I was in grade 10 or 11, I think, who was like fresh out of teachers college. So like early 20s, pretty attractive British dude. And of course, teenage girl, school, small school, hormones.
Yeah.
Not a good idea. And we just tortured him.
Catholic school as well.
No, it wasn't a Catholic school.
I'm joking.
It was an Anglican school, which is basically nothing. And the main things I remember about him were, one, the rest of the English department, who are all women, would only refer to him as that young man. They didn't call him by his name.
Wow. That's very sexist.
Which is pretty funny. Yeah. And I think it was more ageist than sexist, but I don't know. They
still have to mention his gender as well. So
well, otherwise they have to call that young person. That covers the whole student population.
Z.
Yeah.
That young Z.
He was super scared of us.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, probably.
Yeah, it was fun.
Do you not I always forget that you went to an all-girls school.
Yeah.
Is it not strange to you, I guess, like now looking back on it?
No, not really.
No?
Because that's what I did. I don't have, like, I went to a mixed elementary school. I went to university. I went to
Do you think it's an outdated format though?
No, not really. It worked pretty well for me. Like,
but why do you think it's something that works?
I think just because you just focus on getting your stuff done as opposed to on boys, and especially for teenagers. Like, I wouldn't, if I had a kid, I wouldn't at all send them to like a single sex school for their whole life. Yeah. But I think it helped me just get on with stuff in a way.
Okay. Do you not think it sort of would give the chance to arise at interacting with the other sex? Not you, I'm saying, but like people in general. Do you think there's going to be some hang-ups there?
I don't, because it wasn't like a boarding school. Like, I didn't know boys.
Yeah, you spend a full work day, with just girls.
But I mean, you could end up doing that in any job as well. Like, if you're like, I don't think it's a big deal. I think it just helps you not worry about it. And I think a minimum of worrying about it is the best thing. Because there are plenty of ways of like socializing with boys. It just, while you were
prom.
Well,
did you have a prom?
We had dances and stuff. We didn't have a prom. We had a semi-formal and a formal, and you invited boys. Yeah, because you knew boys. Like, that's what I mean.
How many boys did you invite?
I invited 0 boys, but I didn't go. I didn't go to too many of them.
Were you that one girl that her dad turned up to the prom with her?
No. We had a father-daughter dance as well. It was fun. Yeah, it was like once every couple of years. But yeah, I was just getting on with stuff. Like, I wasn't that interested, I guess. Because I wanted to get good grades and go to university and meet boys. Okay. Basically. Go to Ireland and meet Irish boys. It was cool.
So do you think the same would work with the all boys school then? Do you think that's a good place for?
I don't know, because I don't have any experience
of course,
with that.
But
so.
You can sort of you met people that went to all boys school, didn't you?
They don't seem any different than boys that didn't to me, to be honest. Like,
so why have them?
I don't know. I'm not really sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I just know what it's like to be a girl. So yeah, I'm.
You're so Canadian, you know that.
No, I just don't really.
You just don't even want to reach that.
Like, I genuinely can't even remember which of my friends went to all boys schools. Like, it's not a big deal to me. I don't know. Like, I guess again, if you have, I guess it's just fewer distractions and then like less worrying about. But I think maybe the difference is, my impression is that girls in, say, mixed sex classes are more likely to kind of keep their mouths shut.
Right.
Just like socially, that's kind of the vibe you get. So I think maybe single sex schools are maybe help girls more than they help boys, but I don't really know.
Yeah. I could see that.
Yeah. Because I think that was part of it. Maybe for me, is you feel comfortable being like outspoken and.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. And that's why I'm such a bitch now. So awesome.
Thanks all girls schools. Catholic all girls schools.
Not Catholic. Not deranged.
Doesn't take that for you to be deranged. Okay. So yeah.
So I just briefly circling back to Syria and stuff. Oh, cheers.
Sorry for getting serious.
Serious. Yeah. This is we have our moments of levity, but this is a pretty serious podcast. I think we've both been thinking a lot about it.
It's so important, and I think people are just sort of not taking it for the gravity of the situation that it really is.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I wish I could have people on that know about it to sort of inspire some sort of, change in direction towards it, because it's not a good situation for the UK and Scotland, for Scotland especially, who does not want to be part of the UK. Well, okay, the vote went different, but they didn't vote for us to be leaving the EU, and then to sort of be part of a country that's wanting to bomb these other countries.
Yeah.
Scotland just feels detached enough from the UK, and with this, it's kind of cementing it, I guess, and it's just...
It's true. And also just from the world, like it's such an irresponsible move globally, as far as I can tell. And again, maybe there's like wiser people out there. Like it's certainly in terms of something that Scotland is being dragged into that's so far from, I think, you okay?
Having trouble.
Having mic issues. Do you want me to, you good?
Yeah, just keep going, it's fine.
In terms of being dragged into... And that's why it feels so weird to say we are bombing Syria. Like it's not obviously us personally, but it doesn't feel like Scotland either.
Yeah. Like even you, like a Canadian citizen.
Yeah, I'm just some poor Canadian asshole here, not bombing Syria, but yet here we are. And it feel like it. I guess it is. I'm not probably reaching a middle of the UK doing stuff that doesn't feel like what I signed up for when I chose to live here. But it's certainly one more thing that makes me feel not at home. But I don't think...
Is that something that does come across your mind when you see these things going on in this country? Are you so used to being in the UK that you just feel like this is something that's affecting you? Or do you still feel like you're a Canadian taking part and being in a different country?
I still feel Canadian for sure. But I also, like when I talk about the UK, I say we, because this is where my life is now. But so I don't feel... I still feel Canadian, but I feel like I'm a part of things here. But the more this type of thing happens, and the beginning of it was the independence referendum, and then it was the... choosing to leave the EU, I feel like decisions are being made for me that aren't what I signed up for.
Because when you came to the UK, obviously this is not how...
No, it wasn't like this. And part of my wanting to be here was to be part of Europe, to be honest. Like even if it was just a feeling, but that feeling is gone. Like it's turned into just a weird mad island. And honestly, I love Scotland, and there's a lot about Scotland that I really like in terms of its priorities and its history that I feel like I share. But the UK, I don't feel anything. No. I don't at all, and less and less. Yeah.
Like I almost feel disgusted when I hear the word Great Britain, the term Great Britain. Oh
gosh, it bums me out. Yeah. No, I feel it's sad almost.
And it's that sort of imperialistic attitude that the UK has had, and we're still feeling those sort of aftershocks, I guess. Yeah. And we're still thinking of ourselves as this, well, I say we.
Yeah, it's the shortcut. It's it's the easiest thing to do. Yeah. But
they still see themselves as this great nation that can probably be a world leader in taking on, the direction of the world.
And it's such a joke at this point, because even if you still had the dignitas to back up that influence, like also things like Brexit, decisions keep being made that take the UK further and further away from being part of a kind of global community. Like the increasing insularity and sort of fear of outsiders and unwillingness to do their part. and wanting this sort of like consequence-free ability to influence events.
Yeah, they just want to be able to reap all the rewards of being next to the EU, but not actually having to take part.
And it's stupid. Like it's like, of course, is what everyone wants, and like, you know, but that's not how it works. Like, of course, we all want to have our cake and eat it too, but that's not how it works. And
but not as a country. We shouldn't.
No, and not as individuals
people,
either. Even as individuals, you need to see that the most fulfilling thing is to be a good global citizen. Basically, I think at this point it's too late.
It should go. It should, like, as when it's scaled up as a country, that's when it's just terrible to be that sort of selfish as well. You know?
Yeah. I think, I don't know, I think everything is sort of the sum of its parts, and I think to an extent a voting public gets what it deserves, and this is certainly not.
Who said that?
That's actually the one thing that I've taken away from my high school principal. And we used to have student elections for like leaders and stuff, and she'd always say, a voting public gets what it deserves. And she seemed like such a wet blanket, and we'd always vote for the popular kids, and that was just what would happen. And it was about that, and but I thought that was good.
Was she an all-girl? Was she an all-girl?
An all-girl?
Yeah.
She was some sort of one of those like Stepford Wife kind of robots. She was scary. I was really scared of her. Yeah. She wore all pink. Like, she loved pink. That was her color. And if she found anyone in the school, teacher or student, who had a pink pen, she would come and take it. And that was it.
Like, seriously?
Seriously.
That's weird.
I think it started as a joke, but yeah, she was scary.
People just kept turning up with loads of pink pens. So
that would have been a good
idea. She's goading her. It's like an I am Spartacus moment.
Yeah,
everyone
exactly.
just like turns up with pink pens. Can't
I
take
was thinking
and her head explodes.
Yeah. Oh, too many pens. We dam up all the toilets with them.
So yeah, bring it back to what's going on. It's just and I know it's sort of, it is a serious conversation.
And it's one that needs to be had, and I don't think anyone knows where to go.
We need to be. I mean, I don't know on what level it's going on across the nation, but these conversations have to be spoken about. Or is everyone just generally in an agreement that it's terrible and it shouldn't be done, that there isn't conversation because we know it's all terrible and we're not talking about it? Or
the conversations I've had so far, and I'll say the same as you in terms of, I don't know how much my opinions are kind of siloed, just because I've been speaking to people that, you know, I get along with, that I work with, and that kind of thing.
And you probably wouldn't tend to associate with if they had views that were sort of more right-leaning, or, you know, it's not people you would trust yourself to have conversations with, I guess.
Yeah. And the people, that my jobs, everybody's either, so I have a couple of, like, two different jobs. At one, everybody's a bartender. Yeah. And at the other one, everyone's like an really artist or an art student. It is actually at the pit. Yeah. And so none of those are people that I would peg as generally having really conservative opinions. Yeah. So I same thing. But everyone I've spoken to, there's almost no discussion, because everyone, and I think it's also just sort of, people are really sad. There's almost not a lot to say.
I did a poll on my Instagram stories.
That was what I was going to ask about. That was why I was kind of bringing it back. So explain.
At the weekend, and I posted, should we, you know, how you can do the little poll question on your Instagram stories, and I prosed the question. Posed.
You posted it in prose.
I prosed it in a posing format from. You get me.
I gotcha.
And the question was, should we be bombing Syria? Yes or no? Mm-hmm. Click to see
Clickety
which
click.
one. Clickety click. And I had a lot of people clicking on it. But I think it's obviously a hot topic, so there was a lot of people. Maybe it's just a biased view, because obviously I'm going to have my friends on my Instagram.
Yeah, so it's not like it's a poll of the nation. But
I do have a lot of different people on there as well, obviously, with the podcast. Mm-hmm. It's not just people who I'm friends with. Yeah. But obviously, if they like the podcast, they kind of understand the themes, and they'll be more, it's
not going to be a load of old Etonians, but...
No, but as much as I could gather from it, it was without... I think initially it was like 90% was no, and 10% was yes, to bomb them. So the people that voted yes, I messaged them on Instagram, because I wanted to know why they think that. Not in an aggressive way, just as I want to expand my worldview and see where other people are coming from. So I messaged them and said, like, why? I saw you clicked yes to bombing people in Syria. Why? And could you just explain to me, just so I can get a clearer image of why some people might think this? And the people that had clicked yes had done it by accident, supposedly.
That's funny.
I know. So it was 100% of people on my Instagram feed that had voted no.
That's so funny.
To bombing.
I could, because when you showed me, because I think when you showed me it was like 91.9 or something. And I was like, it would be so good if you could ask people, because I don't mean in a confrontational way. I just have no idea why it's meant to be a good idea. Yeah. I don't know. And to me, a big step is admitting that it is just a proxy war with Russia. But in that case, why do you want to poke Russia? Because don't do that. There's obviously a lot of issues between the UK and Russia, but they're not ones to be worked out with bombs.
And we've not really spoke about the people that are being affected by the supposed chemical attacks in Syria.
Yeah.
And that's the people of Syria themselves.
Yeah.
This is obviously terrible, and they've been sort of attacked throughout the period of time over the last however many years.
Yeah. Years and years.
Obviously, that is a thing. That's a huge thing. Yeah. And this isn't just about, the UK should just be looking out for itself. It's like... And I'm not saying don't ignore those people and we should just leave and not have anything to do with it.
No, but
obviously as the world, we should be saying, look, this shouldn't be happening, but not as one country who has nothing to do with it, going in then bombing indiscriminately, where there's going to be civilians that the civilians that you're trying to help, supposedly, you're also bombing. You're displacing these people from Syria. They're becoming immigrants, and then you're denying them access to your own country.
You're refusing to accept child refugees from Syria.
And that's the bare bones of it, of what's going on. There's no other way that you can look at it and say, well, this is why we should be in here. Obviously, I get why there are people in there that are in need of help. Yeah,
it's not that we should just leave Syria alone. No, that's not it at all. No, I'm not saying that. Completely, we're on the same page.
It should be done in a way that's sort of...
diplomatic and humanitarian would seem to me to be the big and I know that they've tried a lot of diplomatic alternatives and it hasn't worked, but the answer is not to bomb it into the Stone Age. That's not... Who is that going to help? They're no closer, I wouldn't have thought, to getting al-Assad to be like, oh, I'm sorry, we can have democracy.
And do you know how many blueprints we've had that has been, we go in and we take out this leader who's a dictator, then a power vacuum is created, and then all these different factions move in, and there's civil war, and then it spills out into different countries, and then it eventually comes back to bite us in the ass.
It just keeps going, and Syria is just one of those. It's just one aftershock from a bunch of, and I don't even really think, al-Assad, he's not a Gaddafi, he's not a good guy, but he's not hardline the way, not that you can call Gaddafi hardline, but he was a proper tyrant. Yeah. Whereas al-Assad, he's basically a product of, he's a product of a system. The system is the problem. I don't think killing him, even if that's what they think they want to do, is going to do anything. If nothing else, the infrastructure in Syria, nothing's there anymore. No. I read the other day, and I don't know if this is true, but it was from a reasonably reputable source. I think it was on the BBC or something, that 1 in 43 people in Syria are dead now.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And that's not even counting all the people. That's one of the horrifying things about chemical attacks is for every, 10 people who are dead, 500 people are going to need health care for decades. Yeah. They're really, even if you survive, you're in bad shape. And people who have been, horribly wounded and who are going to need help for the rest of their lives. And there's no infrastructure there for any of that. Yeah. It's just I was just going on a kind of a trying to figure out how we've got to where we are. Crash course history of conflict in Syria, and it's I can't even begin to say how saddening it is.
This is not one reason that we should go in and save. I hate that, go in and save term, but Syria is such a cradle of civilization as well. There's a lot of archaeological stuff that's going on there
for sure,
and historical significance as well. And it's just been destroyed.
Yeah, like and that was another one of the things that and it seems, it's the kind of thing, it's like when you ask for funding for the arts where there are still homeless people, you need to figure out what your boundaries are and why you're asking for what you're asking for. And I think both those things should be issues. That all of the World Heritage sites in Syria are either partly destroyed or gone now, and there were a number of them because of it being a cradle of civilization, basically.
Did you see just to sort of keep it in the same vein, did you see Gobekli Tepe had been concreted?
Oh, what?
Yep. The people of Turkey, the local government ended up concreting over part of it.
Oh my god!
Because they were creating like paths around it.
Oh my god! Stupid.
Let's see.
Bob at the intern had a bad day on the job in Gobekli Tepe, I guess. Oh my god, that's so crazy.
Okay, so outrage as concrete is poured on world's oldest known temple at Gobekli Tepe.
Stupid.
So after the Turkish Culture and Tourism Ministry gave the go-ahead for conservation work at the ancient site of Gobekli Tepe, which has resulted in irreparable damage from heavy equipment and concrete being poured around the historical important site.
And we know so little about that site still. Like, that could just be something we never learn about the human race now. Like, something could just be gone now. That's so... Oh my god, that's bad.
That is something... Imagine all those things that are dotted around the world that have been blown out of, existence by a bomb or something like that, or just never been uncovered, I guess, by the jungle. Like, there's all this topography things going on just now with the Amazon.
And like ruins in like Peru, that they found like and like stuff we don't even know is there.
But there must be like Gobekli Tepe was unknown until 2012, I think.
It was really recent. It was crazy.
And that is a temple. Well, they say a temple. I don't believe it's a temple. I think that's just what they're putting on it.
It's just an easy way of saying it's important.
Yeah. Not that I'm a scholar or anything like that. It's just from what I've read.
Yeah.
I just think it's something that they can sort of coin and make tourism out of. But it's and between like 12 and like 13,000 years old.
And genuinely, it's so old that we don't even know what people thought about buildings back then, because we didn't think they were making them. So it's just fair enough to say it's a shopping mall or an arcade or I don't know.
Just to put that into context, the closest cradle of civilization like is only like 3,000, 4,000 years ago. Like that's the closest, the oldest we thought, and then it's now been changed to like 12 to 13,000 years
which
old.
Is a huge escalation.
What was going on in between then?
Yeah. And we were talking about this the other day, but like humans are such recyclers, and nobody knows why, I guess, yet, but Gobekli Tepe was intentionally buried. Yeah. And that's probably the only reason why it's still there, is because humans just like using, like, people are taking apart Roman temples to make churches out of in the medieval period.
And that's one of the challenges for archaeologists, is to sort of, when they're on these type of sites in like Roman times or like the Greek, like Greek places, it's hard to distinguish from the later sort of building on top of it, because like you say, people recycle a lot of stuff, so it's hard to tell, well, this is Greek, oh no, this might be like a late addition from Roman, whatever, or even just current civilization from building on it.
Exactly. Just keeping it together now. And I mean, it's not like people have...
Oh, sorry, that's where my train of thought was going, but that's why Gobekli Tepe is so important, because it was built buried intentionally between 13 and 14,000 years ago, because the soil samples are all the same soil. Yeah. Like, it's all one level of soil.
That's so weird.
And that's why we don't have any other, like, people reclaiming it and building on top of it, because it's been completely submerged for that long.
I find that almost the most fascinating, is like, why was it buried? Like, who did it? Like, that's the stuff that screams aliens to me. I don't know. I'm not one of those people, but it's like...
Well, no, to me, it screams prehistory civilizations.
Yeah, but like the burying it, like why?
Oh no, the burying. I think it was maybe to do with an impending something to do with maybe even like a comet or an asteroid.
Okay, they knew or they expected like something was coming.
Something, like or a flood or something was coming, and they knew something was changing, so they intentionally buried it. I think.
Okay.
That's some of the theories I've heard about it.
Is it definitely intentionally buried, or could there have been something natural that happened that buried it, like in a wonder?
Well, I think that was one of the things that they were thought about. They thought maybe it could have been something to do with like a river,
Yeah.
But I think the type of soil, there was no sediment. It was literal soil, and it was all the same. Like it wasn't done in layers. It was just in a
wonder. That's so strange to me. Like it's fascinating.
It's
but
a complete anomaly. Like how many more of these anomalies are around the world?
Yeah.
I'll see.
Yeah, it's like finding a drain in the bottom of the ocean or something. You're like, what? Whose bath is this?
It's God's bath.
God's bath.
Shut up. And he built it in 7 days.
6.
Before the even Georgian. When was it? The 7-day calendar was made.
Oh yeah,
He just decided to do it in
arbitrarily. I mean, 7's a cool number. 3, 7, those are good numbers.
6 is more round though.
Yeah, but 7's cool. 7's a fairy tale number. It's always a 7th son of a 7th son and stuff like that.
Well, 7, 8, 9. So fuck you.
Well, 7's badass then.
Okay. I'm just reading up on Gobekli Tepe in terms of how they know it was all sort of one epological. No. Okay, pre-pottery. That's crazy. It was all done. Like they made this place before any pottery was sort of like the era
ever
of pottery.
Discovered. Yeah. And I liked it was one of the Joe Rogan podcasts again, but he was talking to somebody who was like, well, it's not that impressive. Like their carvings are pretty basic. And it was like, no, dude, it's so old. Like it's so much older.
Well, you're an artist, like, was it the relief sort of stuff?
Yeah. Yeah. And if they're like, so there were relief carvings in it, which is, and I think that's the kind of thing, like you study art history and like it's super different scratching a line into something because that's just basic. Like that's like anytime you need to show somebody something, that's the first thing you do is you make a mark. But in terms of the way your brain needs to work to think of making a relief sculpture, to chip stuff away, to basically take stuff away to make stuff be there, like for stuff to emerge from stone or whatever, like that takes a lot more of a complex thought process to get to that point. So it's not just scribbling. It's like you have a plan, you have some idea of, just the idea. Like it's sort of like that joke about like how do you carve a bust of Beethoven? Like you get a piece of rock and you chip away everything that doesn't look like Beethoven. Like it's that kind of thing. You have to be able to think pretty abstractly to actually do that, let alone have like the time and the tools and the wherewithal to do it. But your brain has to be able to deal with abstracts essentially. And that was before they thought brains could deal with like pottery. So pretty impressive, I think.
I think there's probably it's gonna come up that there are places that had pottery at that time.
I'm sure it's just that we haven't found it because it's all breaky. Like that's the stuff we don't find.
It's hard to find it from that era because it's so fragile.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's a wonder to find. I loved that about when we were in Greece and they had the museum on Agina or however you say it, and even if it's just a fragment of pottery, it's like a pot with like one handle still. You're like, oh my God, this thing somehow.
Someone touched it.
Yeah, someone touched it and then it stopped being useful at some point. It's broken, but it still survived just by chance all the way till now.
It's just
and it's that
there.
Like weird time travel moment where you're like, someone touched this and used this and now I could touch this. And for some reason, just no rocks or sheep fell on it or sat on it or nobody kicked it or broke it up to make something else out of it, and it's just still here. Like it's so weird that traveled through time that way.
I've just made a decision.
Yes,
I think we have to go to Gobekli Tepe.
We totally should definitely go to Gobekli.
It's in Turkey.
Yeah, we should do that.
I wonder where it's
near.
Yeah,
we'll do some research.
Imagine being right in front of those like megaliths and just being like, this is amazing.
Yeah. Well, we could do Turkey and Greece because there's in a winter kind of. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Cool. So presumably if they're like concreting stuff, they're making it ready for people to actually go there as much as they're doing it wrong.
It's terrible that they've done that.
But it's not like a closed site or whatever. Like you can actually go.
I thought they were putting roofs over the top. I think they were trying to take the direct sunlight off of the carvings because it was having an effect on this.
They just need to be so careful. Yeah. And I mean, I'd love to go see it, but I hope they're being super, super careful about that as well. Because just people breathing stupid air on it can mess stuff up.
Yeah. I mean, even recently with Stonehenge, they were saying that they think some of the stones were already there.
Yeah.
And they were maybe there naturally, and then people saw them that they were just happened to be aligned with sort of
a sacred geometrical blah blah blah. Yeah.
So then they built on top of them.
Which I mean makes a lot of sense to me.
Or used them in their sort of whatever druids sex festivals.
Yeah, sex festivals.
Stone.
Yeah.
Just I hate butchering this type of history. So
because I was just trying to remember stuff, and then it's like but I like trying to jam stuff into my brain.
Stonehenge.
I came up with this idea with my parents about, we went to see Hadrian's Wall one of the times they were visiting me in Scotland, and that it would be fun to set up like just before you get to Hadrian's Wall, build another little wall and call it like Hadrian's Wall, so it's just like close enough kind of thing. But you could do a Stonehenge as well nearby, make a wee wall and be like, welcome to the almighty Stonehenge.
But no sex festivals.
No sex festivals unless you book in advance.
How much per person?
Depends what you have to offer, I guess. Yeah. This isn't some sort of one size fits all sex festival. What sort of a circus do you think I'm running?
Pagan sex festivals.
Yeah. It just has to be like in Troll Hunter. You just have to like prove you're not a Christian, and then you're fine.
Well, that is hard because I think people by proxy, or a lot of them are Christian.
Yeah, people are like culturally Christian, but yeah, it's okay. I'll get a troll. I'll just see if the troll can tell you.
Well, we can just go on YouTube or Twitter.
Oh yeah.
There's lots of trolls.
We'll just get one of them, will we? Yeah. Troll.
Imagine that movie now. Like, people actually hunting
Troll
people
Hunter 2. And it's just someone on Twitter being like, Arr!
Well, it could be the same as one of the worst movies of all time. I think it was even voted the worst movie. Like, the worst movie. Yeah. But Which Troll 2 has absolutely nothing to do with the first one, Troll. And it's actually goblins that are in the second one. But it is called Troll Hunter 2.
Or Troll 2? Yeah.
Troll 2. So maybe we should do like Troll Hunter 2.
Troll Hunter 2.
And it's actually about people who are trolls online.
Which would actually be more relevant than goblins, really, because that's just basically racism.
I know.
Yeah.
Mythological xenophobia.
Terrible. Very disappointed.
And what was it we watched the other night, actually?
Which night?
The movie.
Which movie?
The one with what was it we watched? Oh, we watched American Psycho.
We did watch American. That was really disturbing.
Before, like you've read the book.
I've read the book. I think I saw some clips from it. We like studied it in one of my classes at uni. Yeah, I did a lot of like basically creepy books, supernatural and gothic. Yeah, but we did American Psycho.
And what was the outcome of studying it? What did they?
That was like what we were doing.
I think did you have a specific thing to sort of talk about?
We were doing a lot with like psychopathy and psychopaths and general views of kind of that type of mental illness and fiction. And it wasn't. I think that was one that I read very quickly, so I didn't get there were a few I got really absorbed in. We did The Bad Seed. That was one, and it was like a child psychopath, and I got super involved in that because I thought the writing was really good as well. Not that it's not an American Psycho, but it didn't appeal to me as much.
Is that something that is real, child psychopathy?
Yeah, theoretically you can be a psychopath. Like I think the basic thing with psychopaths is you're born a psychopath. They still don't really understand. But you could be...
What I'm trying to say, is it fair to label a child as a psychopath?
I think you could, but that doesn't mean you should like put them away or whatever. Because I mean, there are people out there who are psychopaths who never, say, commit violence against other people. No. But I mean, it would be good to know if you had a little psychopath because you could keep an eye on them.
There's a really sort of hard to watch documentary on YouTube, and it's about this girl. I don't know if it was her brother as well, who was younger.
Yeah,
and I think she was around like 5 or 6. I'm not sure if it was her brother by blood, or it was the adoptive family's little child that they had. They adopted this young girl in I think it was the 70s, and she had been severely abused when she was by her father, and she had all the signs of being a psychopath. Yeah, and she tried to kill her younger brother. She was only 5, and she tried to mutilate his genitals when she was only.
She was definitely super abused, presumably.
Yeah, like
stuff like that, like sexually.
Yeah, really badly. Like it's super hard to watch, and she tries to kill her adoptive parents as well, and they were just like, "This is like, we love this little girl like just so much, but she's trying to kill us."
Yeah,
you know.
And the first thing they'd have to accept is they can love her, but the best thing you can do for her is accept you can't take care of her. She's in that much distress. She needs more help than you can give her.
Exactly. But at the same time, all she needs is love and help. Yeah. And is it something that can never happen for her, or is it something that she could? But eventually, she grew out of it. Yeah. And she got loads of therapy. And
and that would be, because I get the way I understand it, and I could be totally wrong about this, and it could be dated and whatever. Is there are people who do just have different brains and are born psychopaths. Yeah. But to me, somebody who's suffered abuse that horrific and has ended up that way, like, that is not necessarily somebody who can't be helped. Yeah.
But and if you are someone who is a young child and you have all those indicators that you're a psychopath, does that then mean that you're going to be an adult psychopath?
And I think if it's apropos of nothing, as opposed to a product of things that have been inflicted upon you, I think it's quite likely. But that also doesn't mean you'll ever do anything wrong. Yeah. You still get to choose how you behave to a certain extent, and psychopaths can be quite good at fitting in. The problem with this line of,
like in American Psycho.
Oh obviously. Yeah, that didn't go so well. Yeah, I just recite shit about Huey Lewis. The problem when you go down that line with psychopaths is that there's basically nothing you can do to stop people being psychopaths. And they used to try and put them through group therapy, and that just taught them to better pretend how to not be psychopaths, which is actually even more dangerous. So they stopped that quickly. That was not a good pilot project. So because then you get into this thing of like, so what do you do with these people? And it's not fair, to not give someone a chance. But at the same time, if someone's pretty guaranteed to be dangerous, like, how do you handle that? It's a weird one. I don't know. And especially when you deal with kids. But I think in the case of that girl, like, all you can do is just give her help forever and hope that works. Like, you have to just hope.
It's hard when it is something as sort of heavy as not in the case of that little girl, because obviously that was external factors.
Yeah. Although who knows, like, naturally as well, like,
maybe coupled with what happened to her gave her this sort of even more.
Yeah. I think either way you'd end up like that. But
yeah. That's hard. But
it, like, then you get into sort of what's it called? Tom Cruise film.
Wee Man Syndrome.
No. That's curable with rises in your shoes, actually, and also being a famous movie star.
And Scientology.
Cures all. Banging models.
He wasn't banging models.
Tall, attractive people. Nicole Kidman.
It's him. Everyone's taller compared to him.
That's true, but she's quite tall. Minority Report. Yes. You get into that kind of thing where it's like, at what point do you infringe on somebody's sort of life to kind of correct them being out of balance with the good of society? Like, it's and I mean, there are some very successful psychopaths out there in terms of, they talk about profiles of people who, like, lead large companies. A lot of them have traits in common with psychopaths.
And even companies themselves show, like, when you see them as an entity, they show those traits as well. Yeah.
And the sort of diagnostic criteria for psychopaths, they don't require you to enjoy hurting people. It's just one of the options. Yeah. And I mean,
Or your indifference to them being sort of... Do you have to enjoy it, or do you have to be indifferent towards suffering?
I'm not totally sure about this, but to me, sociopaths are indifferent, whereas psychopaths derive enjoyment from suffering. But again, it's one of the criteria. Yeah. It doesn't necessarily say that you need to feel that way, but I don't know if that's an out of date. It's the Hare psychopathy checklist. I don't know if it's out of date. It's like from the 70s or something, probably. So probably.
So if you're listening and you're definitely more sure that you are a psychopath just now because you've listened to this, then
you might be okay. But you know, look it up. Yeah, basically. And honestly,
don't kill anyone.
If you're a psychopath but you behave yourself, it doesn't matter if you're a psychopath. I think, like, if you can keep it together, it's cool.
But do you have to kill someone to be a psychopath?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so. No, it's not. That's not one of the things. Like, there's a lot of things, and some of them are probably things that we all have in common. They're things like no realistic long-term plans. You're going to get plenty of people who have no realistic long-term plans who aren't psychopaths. It's a
very open and
But then it's like...
I'm a psychopath.
I know. But then, like, promiscuity, that's another one. But then it's things like enjoying the suffering of animals, and that's not something a lot of people probably have in common.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's like a rule where it's like if you get 7 out of 10 you're a psycho. It's like up to your therapist to decide.
Well, I guess I'm a psycho now.
Or just like
I'm going to psycho school.
Don't hurt people and you won't get caught, so it's fine. All you psychopaths out there, just don't hurt people and it'll be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty much 2 hours there. Yeah.
Oh boy, well that was a slightly darker one than usual.
Sorry folks if
War
that is
and
a bit
psychopathy.
deeper, but that is something that it's been heavily playing on our minds over the last couple of weeks, and it is one that's important. I mean, I think we just have to take a stance, you know. That I'm not sure if there are people sort of getting together to sort of formulate some form of action, but it's needed, you know.
I don't even know what the right thing is to, because I've noticed that I haven't seen anything about protests or anything, but at the same time I don't know how useful that would be. Like, she doesn't give a fuck.
She's put us in a position where it's just like, what do we do?
Yeah, you're like flabbergasted, like nationally flabbergasted kind of comes to mind. I don't know what's going to happen. I guess we'll see.
It's like someone just came in your house and slapped you in the face.
Yeah, you're like,
sitting watching Neighbours.
What are you doing here? And like, why am I watching Neighbours?
On that note, thanks for listening and thanks for being my guest. Peace.
Peace.